Hey there friends, Jay Paulides, Canadian Missing Project. That is Huck L. Berry, the very, very clean and cut executive producer. Oh, yeah, she's a good girl. Yeah, she's a good girl. Yeah. Oh, that feels good, Dad. Oh, that feels good, huh? And she has little eyebrows. Little blonde eyebrows. Yeah, you're pretty. Pretty girl. She loves having her head scratched. Oh, yeah, Dad, that feels good. Yeah, she's a good girl. She will be supervising and commenting on the progress we make. So, friends, do me a favor. See that movie right there, Missing 411 National Parks, Washington State? Go over there on Amazon and watch it. You can watch it for next to nothing now. It'll help in your knowledge of this topic immensely. After you're done watching, please add a review. Yes, free to add reviews on Amazon. They'd be much appreciated and help the cause. So, been a busy week. Lots of things going on in our Missing 411 world. First of all, do some current events before I get to the missing cases. The first incident, this just happened like 5 days ago. Headlines: Wyoming women escape black bear attack on their tents in the Bighorn Mountains. So, these women are camping far northern Wyoming, kind of in the middle to eastern segment, Bighorn Mountains. It says 2 Wyoming women escaped unharmed after a black bear attacked their tents in the Bighorns while they were inside. Friends Maggie Bassett and Shauna Deal were on a camping trip when the bear began tearing into their tents while asleep Sunday night. It was very scary, Bassett said. Bassett said it jolted them and their 4 dogs awake, and that both women were shocked at the bear's behavior. Yeah. Gill and Bassett proceeded to yell and scream at the bear, even firing gunshots in its direction in an effort to scare it away. None of those efforts worked. It was not scared at all, Bassett said Wednesday afternoon in an online web call. It didn't even blink. It just kind of circled around and came back at me at a different angle. It was circling us, Deal said. It felt like it was circling our campground. Eventually, the bear scattered away after more gunshots were fired. Then the 2 women fled in their vehicle, hiding out for a couple of hours and honking their horn to keep the bear away. We were in there for at least an hour, Deal said, just scared and shaking. Eventually, the 2 drove away unharmed and made their way back to Deal's family cabin a few hours away. Let me stop there. If you're at a campsite and a bear attacks your tent like that in the middle of the night and then flees, if you have a car nearby, you get in that car and you leave. There's a very good chance that bear is just sitting on the outskirts watching for the next opportunity to come in and finish the job. Oh yeah. So they drove away unharmed and made their way to Deal's family cabin a few hours away. Smart decision by those women. When they returned the next day, they found their tents collapsed and torn to shreds. Wyoming Game and Fish responded and told the 2 women they planned to trap the bear and relocate it. Both Bassett and Deal said it was a frightening ordeal, especially because they followed all bear-aware protocol, including using bear containers. Quote, "I'll never forget that sound of my tent being ripped open," Bassett said. Chrissy Webb, Montana Fish and Game, has not been involved in the investigation, but said a bear's memory can bring it back to places where it's encountered unnatural food before. Quote, "It's not unreasonable for a bear to return to a site where they've gotten food in the past," she said. When bears start accessing those unnatural human-based food is when we start to see bears that can be potentially dangerous. Webb said there is no way to know if that is what happened in this case. Quote, it is safer for you to store things properly, and it's better for the bears' sake if they're not able to access those human foods. For Bassett and Deal, it's an experience that has changed the way the two plan to go camping in the future. I don't see myself sleeping in a tent anytime soon. Maybe never, she said. Yeah, we're going to need 4 walls, Deal said. Now, the ladies gave an online interview too. I mean, a live interview as well. What they said there is that they purposely did not shoot their gun at the bear trying to hit it. They shot it at its feet, just trying to scare it away. They only had a .38 caliber pistol, the wrong type of pistol caliber to take into bear territory. Now, what they did right, number one, no food in your tent. They did that. These were very experienced women campers. They were carrying a firearm, even though the caliber was too small. And they also had their dogs with them. And in the interview, they said their dogs were going crazy and barking, and it had no effect on the bear. That's also very odd, because bears usually are afraid of barking dogs and go up trees to get away from them. They also stayed together, a key point. And the most important point is they left right after the incident. But they did wrong. Improper firearm for the job, and they didn't have any bear spray. I know people laugh about bear spray. And 99% of the time, bear spray works. And what everyone wants to do is we want that bear to associate the smell of a human with that awful bear spray so they stay away. I don't know why they didn't have bear spray. That's really only flagrant violation of protocol that I understand they made. So that's in Wyoming. Now, we've had a lot of problems with bears already here in Montana too, but there's something weird going on with bears everywhere in the world. We've talked about Japan. Oh, speaking about Japan, I believe that what I'm going to tell you right now is a missing 411 case. And I want you to listen to it. This was a letter sent to me, and it's worth hearing. Hey Dave, appreciate your programs you have been putting up on YouTube. Have watched your first few movies, and they are extraordinary. Currently finishing up a Missing 411 and Beyond book. In 2003, I was at my first stationed in Sasebo, Japan. Every day had security post rotation to various locations around the city of Sasebo. There was housing areas, jet fuel depots, armory bases, etc. One place the fellow sailors didn't really take to was a remote base along the ocean 30 minutes away. There was an old World War II Japanese base that the U.S. military had taken over and uses as our own ordnance storage facility. There were a few dozen buildings we had to check 3 times a night in a tiny Japanese work truck. We would stay one post at the gate, and one would patrol checking out each building and logging it. We had our standard issue 9mm and a 12-gauge shotgun, a baton, and a mag light. Some MAs, military policemen, etc., would gun deck the logs, there were rumors of old Chinese sailors appearing on the lonely remote gravel roads around the base. Can't say it was creepy being out there alone with little more than a dimly lit building sparsely located along the property. There was also an old cemetery located at the base, and more importantly, a Japanese firefighter station near the edge of the base. So the 2 of us were the only security out there for a 12-hour shift. Very strange occurrences happened to me during my posts there on several occasions. One profoundly influenced me to look into high strangeness when 3 UFOs flew over the sky at a speed that left us with both speechless, and we stood there gazing in disbelief. However, this incident has equally baffled me because there was a Japanese elderly man whom I discovered clinging to the exterior of a security gate perimeter overlooking the ocean one night. David, I was finishing up my last few bunker checks when someone started to make sounds that spooked the heck out of me. I drew my service gun and mag light to scan the perimeter, but couldn't see anyone. Again, there should not be anyone on this remote section of the base, other than us two security personnel and the Japanese firefighters whom we never saw. So I walked to the fence perimeter, and it was a good 50-foot drop to the ocean below. There was, however, a small 1-foot concrete ledge that ran along the fence line. So I followed it for a minute. Then on this very dark, moonless night, there appeared an elderly Japanese man in pajamas with bloody hands holding onto the gate. Yes, if you can imagine, I don't know who was the more startled, me or him. Shining the mag light into his direction, certain details immediately stood out. It was freezing, David. It was February and a good 40 degrees outside. My Japanese wasn't awesome, so I called over the radio for the firefighters to bring a key to open the adjacent gate and a local police officer with an ambulance. It took several minutes for the local police and medical team to show up. The Navy translator and police eventually released the details of the elderly man's identity to me. He was missing for 3 days, according to his family. I don't remember if he was wearing shoes, but he was in pajamas because I still have the photos. In fact, I still have my Japanese Docomo phones from 2003 because they were so advanced at the time with cameras and video capabilities. To me, it seemed like he may have been an old World War II vet looking to get on in his old base, perhaps. But it never occurred to me until I started to read your books that how could this man arrive for days in freezing weather when I was cold in my military gear? Moreover, how was he able to walk so far through the wooded areas in pajamas? It bothered me for days as to the thought that had I too gun-decked my log, would the old man had survived another day in freezing weather. Well, Dave, thanks again for all you do. I'm actually on a flight to Japan with my son. My wife and kids are already there. Hopefully we can visit this base in days to come because that first event left an impression on me that never went away. Thanks for everything you do. Wow. So imagine, you're a security guy, you're on a remote portion of the base where nobody's at, and you see some old guy clinging to a fence above the ocean in pajamas. And he'd been missing for 3 days. How did he get there? Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Now this one, you got to hold on to your seats. That's all I can tell you. Hold on to your seats. For the people that have been around for a while, I did a whole segment on Marin County in Northern California, just north of San Francisco, about unusual disappearances in Marin County. And one of those stories dealt with a man and a young lady on a date. And he was a pilot, and he said that he was going to fly her over the Marin headlands and out towards the ocean to show her what the headlands and the ocean and how beautiful it was. And as he was flying her along, the seat or the door was next to her. She opened the door and jumped out, disappeared, died. Lots of conversation about that case. A lot of people wanted to think that the guy did it. No, he didn't do it. But now, sit back and listen to this. Student pilot forced to land plane alone after instructor leaps to his death mid-flight. A student pilot was forced to land her plane alone after her instructor jumped from the aircraft during a flight in Argentina. The 22-year-old had been training with her instructor, Leandro Bertazzo, 42, in a Cessna 150 when he evacuated the aircraft. I guess you call that evacuating the aircraft. I call it something different, of course, but This is a picture of the instructor that evacuated the aircraft. There's a lot more to this story. Hold on to your hat. Despite watching Mr. Bertazzo plunge to his death, she still managed to land the Cessna safely and unaided at Coronel Olmeda Airport, where they took off, and alert authorities to the emergency situation. I don't think it was much of an emergency right then. Mr. Bertazzo, who described himself, he's the pilot that jumped, online as a former commercial pilot in Chile, was then found dead 20 minutes later in a field in the area where the woman marked out as a place where he could have fallen. Eduardo Alvarez, director of a flight school, Flying Parrot Cordoba, where Leandro had worked as an instructor for 4 years, recounted his conversation with a young student who said he jumped. He told Argentinian media, at one point, Leandro told her, you know what to do, keep moving forward. He took his headphones off, arranged his belongings, including his mobile phone, took his seatbelt off, opened the door, which is very difficult to open, and jumped. She sent a message informing about the situation, then proceeded to return to the runway to land. Describing Leandro as a man who was always smiling and admitting no one had suspected he was about to take such a dramatic decision, he added, he took his tragic decision on board a plane with a person by his side. There's no way to think about it or understand it, but the human mind is so complex, so treacherous. That's why what happened happened. An investigation into the bizarre accident, which happened on Saturday afternoon near the town of Toledo in the province of Cordoba in Argentina, is ongoing. Officials have said the circumstances surrounding the tragedy are so unusual they can't offer an explanation for the moment. One of the lines of inquiry investigators are thought to be studying is whether the incident may have been a result of a mechanical failure, related to a hatch. They are checking the plane and flight school's documentation. Local reports that Leandro had received neuropsychiatric treatment, although only relatives close to him were apparently aware of the tragedy. Mr. Alvarez described his student as a very clear, decisive, mature professional. He added she was very shaken, but with complete professionalism, she flew that plane to the airfield and made a perfect landing. She maintained a very high level of training and professionalism. Earlier in the day of the incident, Bertazzo had taken another student out to fly before getting into the cockpit with the 22-year-old student. Friends, our world is a strange place. And I will tell you, as I stated in the first case in Marin, I feel sorry for the instructor that jumped, for sure. But I feel very, very sorry for that student pilot that was flying that plane. She has to live with that memory for the rest of her life. And I don't mind saying this, it wasn't fair to do that to her. No. If you're destined to jump out of a plane, go rent the plane and fly or jump out yourself with nobody there. Why do you have to victimize her? It gets me mad. Remember, suicide is a transfer of pain. Obviously, the man was in a large amount of pain. He transferred that pain to that student and to every loved one in his life. And that pain only ends when they die of natural causes. So if you're thinking about suicide, you think about the amount of pain you inflict on those people around you. And they will carry that pain for their entire life. All right, talk to you about a case today. And this was sent in to me by someone from Germany. Thank you for doing this. I would have never heard of this case. Very unusual. It involves a young lady named Scarlett Salice. That's Scarlett, 26 years old, missing September 10th, 2020, almost 6 years ago. Born September 22nd, 93. She's a resident of Germany. She was born with a very strong sense of independence. She liked to do things on her own, make her own decisions. She had one sister. She was described as adventuresome, enjoyed traveling. She wanted to learn about different cultures, different people. She wasn't bashful. Had no issues traveling alone to foreign countries. Well, she resided in a town called Bad Lippspring. Yeah, that's the name of the town. In November 2019, she had made long-term plans to travel through Southeast Asia alone. She ended up in a country called Myanmar, and there she met a man from China named Joey. They got along really well, and then they decided to travel together for several weeks. They got closer and closer, and they had a strong relationship at the end. What happened was 2020 came around, COVID hit Europe, travel restrictions went into effect, borders start to close, and Scarlett and Joey thought that they better get back to their countries, and they'd keep in contact with each other. Well, they did. And the relationship continued to bloom, even online and by phone and Zoom. In the summer of 2020, Scarlett's mom and her undertook a 500-mile trip called the Camino de Santiago. They did this trip together. And during that trip, this is when she heard about a hike in Germany called the Schluckensteig. Now, when I heard about her mom wanting to go with her on this trip, I'm kind of thinking that mom made a really good decision. Because young women traveling in foreign countries alone are targets. Very true, folks. I'm sorry. They are targets, especially in big cities where there are a lot more criminals. Well, Scarlett talked to her mom about Schluckensteig and expressed a desire to go on it and hike it alone. That hike is broken into 6 different stages, total length about 75 miles. And the different stages have thousands of hikers every year. It's extremely popular, which is something I wouldn't like. I don't want to hike on a trail and see thousands of people. And it goes through the Black Forest of Germany. The hike includes creeks, valleys, greenery. The highest peak is just a little under 5,000 feet. You know, I remember talking to cousins and kids when they were in their 20s, and you tend to think you know it all. And you tend to think nothing's going to happen to me. I'm indestructible. And we all know that saying, you don't know what you don't know. So you think everything's peachy keen. Well, on September 4th, 2020, Scarlett drove 375 miles from her residence to Stulingen. That's the start of the trail. She was carrying a very easily identifiable red Osprey backpack with a silver sleeping pad and a sleeping bag and other hiking equipment. She spent the night that night before she went on the trail the next day. September 5th, she actually started the hike. Again, thousands of people hike this trail every summer, so she was seeing people all over that trail. But while she was on the trail, there was a lot of times there was cell reception, so she'd call friends, family, keep in touch, let her know how the hike is going, etc. One of the stages of the 6 stages, she met 3 young men her age. They got along well. Part of that time they hiked together. One night they all slept together. Not that kind of sleepy, bad thoughts you. No, platonically. Well, she also stayed in hostels and some lodges along the trail. By September 9th, she had completed 5 of the 6 stages of the hike. She got a room in a lodge in the city of Tatmoose. She called family and friends, gave them updates. She in fact spoke to a very good female friend and said, hey, when the hike's over, I'll meet you for sure, talk to you, tell you about everything, show you the photos. She told everybody that she was starting that final leg of the hike the next day. The next day, September 10th, 10:08 a.m. She is captured on CCTV inside of a supermarket in the city. She would purchase some bottled water, snacks, and appeared to head towards the trailhead, according to the pings on her cell phone. At 10:46 a.m., she made a video call to her boyfriend, Joey. He was later interviewed, and he said that she just seemed a little stressed. Yeah, well, it seems I'm that way every day. At 10:57, she made her last WhatsApp message. At 10:58, her cell phone ceased communicating with the cell tower. What does that mean? It means it either ran out of batteries, got shut off, or got out of range. Now, this last stage is 13.5 miles long. A pretty easy day hike for somebody young and healthy. Her plan was to finish that hike and get a ride back to Weir, W-E-H-R, where her car was parked. Now, during that last day, friends, family continued to try to communicate with her, as was the practice, but nothing was going through, and they were concerned because that hadn't happened before for an entire day. The morning of September 11th, everybody got concerned. They knew that she should have been at her car, phone should have been charged, she should have been in cell range, and nobody had heard from her. So they filed a missing persons report, and her parents immediately left for that search and rescue area that they were searching now. This investigation, I was pretty impressed. It took a multi-pronged approach. They first needed to confirm her last location by phone. Well, her friends and Joey did that. They also pinged her phone. That confirmed where she was at. They pinged her phone and found the last location it was pinged at. They found the video footage at the supermarket. Investigators found that. And she was last in that area of the trailhead where she was supposedly going. They also sent investigators in another city to her apartment to search it. And what they were looking for is they were probably searching her computer, making sure she wasn't doing any harm to herself, etc. They had volunteers and SAR officers hiking that trail where she supposedly went in. They used drones, helicopters, canines, volunteers, ground pounders. And this was in a region of the Black Forest that had huge activity at this time of the year. They also interviewed the 3 hikers who saw her earlier in the search. They cleared them of any involvement. And then they were able to find people, because this had huge press, who had seen her at various stages of the hike. Confirmed this path that she had taken was the trail, and they confirmed that. But the one thing that they couldn't find, and they had no explanation for this, that last stage of the hike, the 6th stage, they couldn't find anybody that saw her on that. So they didn't know if she fell off the trail soon after she got on it, if she went off trail and got hurt somewhere. They didn't know. Well, they searched for over a month, and then they started searching again in the fall when the leaves came off the trees, hoping that there'd be more coverage they could see. A very popular German TV crime show aired in June of 2022 that highlighted her case. From that, the German police got over 140, I wouldn't call them leads, but points of inquiry that they worked. They all went nowhere. Nobody saw her leave. Nobody saw her get in a car. Nobody saw her on that last trail. Now, Scarlett's dad was a constant presence in the search and rescue. He initially posted a $13,700 reward. Now, this was in euros, so it wasn't dollars. And this was later elevated by the government to a $115,000 reward in US dollars. Here's another picture of Scarlett. There was even a fruit and beverage company that marketed products in cartons, and they put her picture on thousands of them that went to thousands of supermarkets in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. That produced no leads. Now, we're approaching 6 years of her being missing. Let's talk about this. What could have happened? Well, there have been a lot of theories online about this. Did she have an accident that first mile on the hike when she didn't see anybody? Went off trail, used the bathroom. Something happened. Who knows? Did she voluntarily get in a car at the trailhead? That doesn't seem likely because she had told everybody she was going to finish. No reason not to. Nobody believed that she would have taken her life or voluntarily disappeared because of the imminent plans she had with friends. She was very reliable that way. And when the German police searched her apartment, there was no evidence that she was ever going to do any harm to herself. Or did something else happen out there that we talk about in Missing 411? Good question. Now, because of a language barrier in Germany, it's extremely time consuming to go through all of these cases, translate them, and find the facts. And then because I'm not a resident of Germany, I have a tough time understanding what's fact and what's not, and what news agencies I can trust and ones I can't. I know about that in America, but out there I don't. So as a parent, Scarlett's mom had a tough one, and her dad had a tough one. I really like the idea that her mom went with her on that hike earlier. That was really good. Two people are harder to overcome than just one. And like I said to you, single women in foreign countries are targets. It's just a fact. Now, this area is considered to be very safe. So the idea that some crime happened there, anything's possible. But is it probable? Probably not. Now, it's been 6 years. Tens of thousands of people have been up and down that trail. Nobody's ever found anything. But not only have they gone up and down that trail, but most of them, if not all of them, at one point went off trail to use the bathroom, went off trail to find a place to put their tent, etc. And with a $115,000 reward, nobody has come forward to claim it or to give a key statement about where she is. I don't know. It's a true mystery. And since canines never found a trail to track that led to her, it's another one of those missing 411 cases. Talk about being kind and caring. Parents have gone through. Those parents went through hell. And they're still going through hell, I know. Remember, when you're out in the public, be friendly, be kind, smile. Smiles are free, and you might make somebody's day. And just by reading the comments on my videos in the last 2 weeks, you will see that there are thousands of people out there watching my videos who are going through trying times. And we need to be polite online and caring. And 99.9% of you are right there, and I appreciate that. Be safe, be kind. Paulides out.